Here we go. Now we're back. What's poppin', y'all? We back. Back like we never left, B.D.A. One Piece is not out yet, but I got some stuff I gotta talk to y'all about, okay? And I've been seeing it on the timeline, so I just want to talk about it really quickly. And yes, I guess it's somewhat power scaling because we're talking about Yonko and Admirals, but what I really want to talk about is the gap. The gap I'm talking about is the gap between the Yonko and the Admirals, because consensus, I think Yonko is still regarded as over Admirals, like significantly. A lot of people do feel that the Admirals will lose to Yonko more often than not. But I'm not gonna lie, I do feel that the gap is closing. And this is something that happens all the time. Do you know what that thing is? Well, first you gotta subscribe to the channel, right? Subscribe to the channel, drop a like, turn on post notifications, and then we're gonna talk about what always happens, okay? Because it happens every single time in One Piece. Again, we've been exploring and enjoying One Piece for over 1,000 chapters, and we're getting close to episode 1,000. Now, in the comment section, if you're excited for it, you can let me know. They have something big planned. Now, I've been hearing things that I'm not at liberty to talk about right now, because I'm not sure if it's true, but I've been hearing big things are coming with episode 1,000. Like, big things. Something that we've been talking about on the channel for a while. That's neither here nor there. What I'm saying is, Yonko and Admirals, they're always going to be compared. They're two of the great powers in the world. When you think of the One Piece world, okay? Of course, perspective matters. If you're a fan, you're going to think about the world building, you're going to think about the characters, you're going to think about just how much fun and love One Piece brings to you. But when you think about it, it comes down to pirates achieving their dreams, achieving their goals. And then you think about the people, the organization that's responsible for stopping this stuff, the main antagonistic force, because the Straw Hats, they are the protagonists, and that would be the Marines. So when you think of the Straw Hats, you think of pirates, you think of Marines, and when you think of the antagonists, you think of the Marines. So then you think of the great powers in the pirates. You think of the Yonko, and then you think of the Admirals, because the Admirals, they are the greatest power that the Marines have. Now, I know. I don't think I've ever done this on the channel, whereas I have never speculated exactly what I think of the Gorosei, because I know there are a lot of people out there who think that the Gorosei could be as strong as the Admirals, or some or a couple could be as strong as the Yonko. The rebuttal was always, well, do you think there are 5 Yonko caliber characters just sitting there not doing anything? And the difficult thing with that is, like, we're trying to use our own logic to justify someone else's story, right? We don't have any idea what the Gorosei represent and what they're going to represent going forward. They present themselves as the final villains, the final boss, the final people you fight or you encounter before you get to Imu. So they're gonna have to be fairly strong. But I don't think it's fair to use the logic of, well, they can't possibly be as strong as the Admirals, because we don't know. We have no idea where it's gonna go. So I understand the logic behind it, but I don't think we can use it because we literally have no idea. More than likely, they're not that strong in regards to Admirals and Yonko, where people are probably more inclined to say they're as strong as the Admirals, because the Admirals, let's face it, they don't get as much clamor as the Yonko in this community for whatever reason, but we'll talk about it. So when people think of the Marines, yes, the Admirals you think about, but people also think of the Gorosei and Imu, because it's a lot going on over there. For the pirates, it is definitive. The Yonko, those are the 4 strongest, okay? Those are the people at the top of the pirate world in regards to influence, strength, territory, all of that. It is clear. What's not as defined is the Marines, because again, of the Gorosei, what they present, Imu, what he or she presents, and the Admirals, how they've been presented in the story. As much as an Admiral fan as I am, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I don't understand why people have the Yonko clearly over the Admirals, because I just presented these factions. It's less defined, right? And then portrayal matters. The Yonko, in a way, before meeting them, I would say, they've always been portrayed as gods. People in the One Piece world that you don't want to encounter, you don't want to tussle with, you don't want to be the focus of their ire. You just want to lay back. Don't worry about them, don't bother them, let them be, because these people can erase you in a second. And then you use different characters to justify this way of thinking, where a lot of people go back to Doflamingo saying, well, look at how Doflamingo, this person who was laughing in the middle of chaos in Marineford, he was terrified at the mention of Kaido possibly raining down upon him. He did not want that smoke with Kaido at all. And then after we see Kaido, we're like, well, you know what? I understand why he wouldn't want that. Where it's clear, Kaido is a dominant force. Then people look at, well, Doflamingo, he was attacking Fujitora in Dressrosa. So you're trying to tell me that this Admiral Fujitora is as scary as someone like Kaido? Doesn't make sense, right? However, nuance, context, it gets lost in translation. Because I gave you those examples, you're like, you know what? You're right. He did do that. Damn, there's no comparison without context. Sure, let's add some context. So 1, Doflamingo's business, it gets eradicated or it gets disrupted by the Straw Hats in law. Or I should just say the Straw Hats because law is a part of them now. It gets disrupted by those characters. Now a Yonko of the sea is raining down upon you in Dressrosa saying, Dofi, you need to fix this shit. Or Dofi, I'm coming after your ass. But here's the thing. It not only destroys Doflamingo's dream where he just acquired this country, but it also destroys his business. The Straw Hats destroying the factories destroy his business. So it's not just about Kaido. Everything is now ruined in addition to this big ass Yonko coming after you. So I think Doflamingo's reaction is of course due to Kaido being who he is, but also it stops everything. Remember, Doflamingo gave up the slave trade for Smile. He basically went all in on Smile because his greatest client, or his client, was one of the greatest pirates in the world. Now his true goals, you can try to parse exactly what he was trying to do, but I think Doflamingo was way more ambitious than being the broker or being the king of the underworld. He wanted everything to burn, so I'm going to provide the things to make everything burn. Now with them destroying the factories, it all comes crashing down because you just angered my greatest client, the person that I was depending on to make all of this burn. And who knows what other plans he had. That's one perspective. Now, Fujitora. Doflamingo knows the Marines. He understands how the world government operates. He knows Fujitora cannot touch him. He knows he is protected. He's not only a celestial dragon, so he has more knowledge than the average pirate, even the average celestial dragon, but he's also a warlord. So he understands how this works. It's a bit of arrogance on his side. It's a bit of, you can't touch me. So I'm going to attack you to show you just how I feel about you and where we stand. Yes, I'm a dog for the government, but you are as well, because I can attack you and you can't do anything about it, Fujitora. As strong as you are, you cannot do anything. Now, people are going to say, well, he tried another admiral in Aokiji. Well, Aokiji showed up to Punk Hazard and he said, don't touch Smoker. Doflamingo tried it. He got frozen, got out of it. Then he immediately turned Feather and left. If you are really about that smoke, you go after Aokiji. He's right there waiting for you. Now, it is fair to ascertain that he would never try something like that against the Yonko. Sure, but personalities matter. Aokiji's not the same as Akainu. Much more chill, much more reserved now because his personality changed because of something that happened in the past. More than likely the Ohara incident. I believe that was confirmed. So he's different. Now, you're telling me if Doflamingo was about to kill Smoker and Akainu was behind him saying, Doflamingo, don't touch him, I think you would do things a little bit differently. And now, here's the thing though. People have Aokiji and Akainu just on vastly different levels. Right? And for me, even though I have Akainu higher in my rankings, in my things I make up in my head, they're not that far apart in the grand scheme of things. If you fight someone for 10 days, of course, this is all hype by Oda, just to hype up these characters in that interaction because that was a momentous change in the One Piece world. Who knows where the world government would be now if Aokiji won? However, Akainu did. And again, people, we cannot lose sight of this. Akainu did something that's never been done in the One Piece world, ever. Someone that we consider a top tier, I'm gonna say top tier, probably the top 12 in the pirate world, a top 12 character. He was definitively named the victor in one of those encounters. That has never happened before. The closest thing I can think of is maybe Shiki versus Garp, but Sengoku was there as well. Roger and Garp never had a conclusion. We can talk about Rocks and Garp and Roger, but yeah, we're not even sure what happened there. Even Whitebeard versus Roger, that battle for 3 days, never had a conclusion. Shanks and Mihawk, we don't know the conclusion. Shanks and Kaido, we don't know the conclusion. Big Mom and Kaido, no conclusion. These fights, typically, they don't have a conclusion because these people are too powerful for a conclusion to happen. You need an edge. You need something else to edge out someone of that level, of that caliber, because you guys are just that damn powerful. Ace and Blackbeard comes to mind, but it's not on that level. I wouldn't say back then they were top 12. Definitely not Ace. So here we are. Akainu defeated another top 12 character for the title of Fleet Admiral. I'm also open to the fact that I could be wrong, meaning they had an agreement where that's all hearsay. That's all cover. For Aokiji to go undercover, that is absolutely possible because Oda, he plays with these things. So I'm open to being wrong. However, based on what we know, it's a feat like none other has ever accomplished. Even for the fights that we have at conclusion, where we can think of Kaido and Oden. You can argue whether or not Kaido is top 12 back then. The conclusion was because of BS. Let's just call a spade a spade. It's because of BS. The old hag brought Momonosuke in. Who knows what the conclusion would have been? I foresee no conclusion. This was the only way to end it because Oda has built up these characters to the point that, hey, for a conclusion to happen, you got to be built a little differently, or it's just going to be a tie. It's just going to be a toss-up. It doesn't end. These people, they're all around the same level. So it's weird. Now, why I'm saying, or why I'm sensing the gap closing is because what's been happening recently. I think the first time I saw overwhelmingly support of the Admirals, even more than the Yonko, for a day, one day, was when the Scabbards pierced Kaido. I promise you, there were so many people willing to say, okay, I may have been wrong about the Yonko. Saying, well, if the Scabbards can pierce Kaido, Akainu, who took Whitebeard's head off with one swipe, can't do anything to Kaido with his magma? I may have to rethink some things, but I think what we hold on to is Whitebeard's final act. Whitebeard's last stand, and we think of Akainu as the strongest admiral. And for a lot of people, he got manhandled by old Whitebeard. But it's weird because depending on who you talk to, Whitebeard was the strongest or he was the weakest Yonko. It just depends on who you talk to. So that's why I try not to hone in on that too much because perspective is important. I had a debate with someone recently, another YouTuber, I'm not going to say here, but another YouTuber, and they were on the side of Akainu being weaker than Whitebeard because that was the author's intent. That's based on the first time you watched that scene, based on how you interpreted that encounter. There's no way you walked away from that encounter saying Akainu was stronger. And I 100% agree. The first time I watched that fight, I was like, it's clear. Whitebeard is stronger than Akainu. Then you go back a little bit. You think of circumstance, you think of plot, you think of story. You're like, whoa, this was the only conclusion that was possible. After Ace's death, Oda could not and would not have Whitebeard take a massive L to Akainu because then the Blackbeard moment doesn't happen. The One Piece existing doesn't happen. These things played out the way it did because it had to, which isn't a bad thing. However, I don't think it is a fair judge in regards to power scaling, but it has most of the community in a chokehold. Like, oh my God, Whitebeard wiped the floor. Where I'm like, well, this is just something to think about. Let's say it's an even playing field and both these characters are by themselves. No one's around. Whitebeard would essentially be fighting in a volcano. And then with that, how long would he hold up? Now, again, this isn't really that important. I'm just saying that the gap is narrowing, not just because of that, but because we're finding out more about the Yonko. That's why that day people shifted for a bit. Because they're like, wait, whoa, I didn't know this was possible. Then, of course, all the things and the shenanigans that happen to Big Mom, people shift all the time. Like, oh my God, Big Mom, she's top 10, she's top 15, she's top 20. Like, well, Frankie would never do that to an admiral. Brooke would never do that to an admiral. It's like, well, that's unfair. But people are starting to shift because now they're seeing Kaido. They're like, he's still very powerful, but geez, like an admiral? Again, I'm on the side of the average Yonko would be the average admiral. I agree with that. However, I don't believe it is as overwhelming as people think. I think, well, I have a top 15, top 12, and I think everyone is relatively on the same level, where it could go either way for most of these characters. But one thing I don't do is hold firm in these beliefs. I am willing to change my mind. My mind can be changed for sure. Something could happen next chapter. I'm like, yeah, you guys are right. Or something could happen next chapter. I'm like, you know what? I was right all along. But I think in One Piece, the longer you're preserved, the longer you're kind of held in the background, the stronger you're going to be. Because if the Admirals are the final opponents of the Straw Hats, or some of the final opponents, I mean, you guys kind of have to shift your way of thinking, no? If Luffy, after all this improvement, is still struggling with someone like Akainu, wouldn't that shift things if he defeats Kaido here? And I get it, Kaido is hurt, but Luffy's beat up as well. Yeah, he ate some meat, but he's not 100%. It's almost like when he fought Doflamingo. When they went into the final fight, it was like, well, I've been fighting and running all day. And Doflamingo's like, well, I've been taking attacks from you and Law. We're probably around the same. They probably are around the same right now. Because Kaido is he's a tank. But man, I just gotta say, for power scaling, there's nothing firm for me anymore. It is what it is. It's all fun. That's why I want us to keep this somewhat civil, because it's not a big deal. Whatever you believe, and I support you in your beliefs, whatever it is. This is not meant to drive a wedge between us. This is meant to just articulate how I feel about things, because it's an observation I had, and I haven't talked to you guys in a while, so I'm like, let's start off with something light. I have an awakening video planned. I have a Sabo video I want to talk about. I have a Shiryu video I want to talk about. And guys, believe it or not, I have a Katakuri video. But it's coming. All this will be coming soon. Chapter should be out tomorrow. But guys, give me your thoughts. How do you feel about Yonko versus Admiral? I know like people shifted, people are still on the Yonko. Has anything changed the more we see the Yonko? Or do you still think, no, it's pretty definitive? But yeah, give me your thoughts. Make sure to like the video if you did. Subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Follow me on Twitter at BragoDAce. Follow me on Instagram at BragoD.Ace. Thank you to my patrons. I appreciate you guys all so much. Again, guys, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
I start doubting me, I felt lost. I rewrite it.